Today I'm Ruby Redfort, who's the central character in a series of books that I really like and really recommend. I read some of these books with both my daughters, and then some of them they read independently on their own. I can't remember exactly how many books in the series. I think there's about 6 or 7, so there's quite a lot. But this is the first book, and it's called Ruby Redfort, Look Into My Eyes. And as you can see, Ruby Redfort always wears this red hair clip, which she calls a barrette because she's American, and it has a fly on it. So I thought I'd try and emulate that when I'm reading you a bit of the book today. Let's have a look at the blurb first on the back. Meet Ruby Redfort, every smart kid's smart kid. No one must ever suspect a thing, said Hitch. That's rule number 1. Keep it zipped. Sure, said Ruby. Don't blab. Sounds pretty simple to me. No, kid, that's where you're wrong. That's the difficult bit. Code breaking and all that other stuff, that's easy compared to a secret like this. So, you might already be getting a sense for what kind of book Ruby Redfort is. It tells you a bit more about it on the inside cover. Want to know more? Of course you do, Buster. What would you do if you were a 13-year-old kid and a secret agency asked you to become their ace code cracker? Panic? Panic will freeze your brain. Tell all your friends? You'd be out on your ear, bozo. Could you keep it zipped? Well, could you, Buster? Lucky for Ruby Redfort, she's not your average kid. She's never going to crack. She's super smart, she's always cool, and she can keep her mouth shut. Can't she? There's only one way to find out. So, you might be getting a general feeling for what kind of genre this book is. Ruby Redfort becomes a secret agent, a spy, but she's only 13 years old. But she's amazing at cracking codes and solving riddles and solving mysteries and problems. So this is the first book where she first gets signed up by a secret agency. I think it's called Spectra. And I thought rather than reading you the first chapter, I'd read you quite a short chapter called Chapter 9. It's called A Small Dark Space. And in this chapter, Ruby has been receiving like secret messages, coded messages to rendezvous at a particular place at a particular time. And this is when she's arrived at the meeting destination. Chapter 9, A Small Dark Space. Ruby pulled up at exactly the spot she was sure she was meant to be. It was just out of town on Mountain Road, at a place where the road bent round to the left. It was the site of the old gas station. The only thing remaining of it was the faded sign, which still pronounced, "Be lucky! Treat your automobile to some Lucky 8 gas!" It had been an unusually sunny afternoon, and the road still felt warm under her feet. She took a look around. Am I meant to be meeting someone? There was nothing in any direction, nothing at all. Ruby was about to admit to herself that she had made a mistake when she noticed a manhole cover. She walked slowly over to it and brushed the dust from the cover with her hand. The manhole cover had a company logo on it, a picture of a fly, with the words Blue Bottle and Lava underneath it. Around the edge was the same repeating pattern as on the card, and there was a number in the middle, 848. 848. She waited, only taking her eyes off the manhole to check her watch. At precisely 8 o'clock, she began working on how to open the cover. There was a trick to it, and after only a few minutes she had worked it out. 8 turns clockwise, 4 anti-clockwise, and another 8 clockwise. Bingo! With some effort, she lifted the lid and peered down into utter blackness. Ruby Redfort's one real fear was the small, confined space. Not cupboards or tiny rooms, or tunnels she knew her way out of. No, it was the small, dark space she had never before encountered. The small, dark space with no way out, with no oxygen. That's what she was scared of. She stared into the void for 5 minutes, 32 seconds before she got a grip on herself. Was she really going to come this far and no further? Her instinct told her it would be okay. Her body wasn't so sure. Very slowly she eased herself down into the drain and jerkily pulled the manhole cover over her head. She merged with the dark. No more hands, no more feet. It was as if she had dissolved into black. The panic rose up through her body and started to play its usual tricks on her mind. Her breathing became short and rapid. She felt dizzy and sick. "Get a grip, Ruby," she hissed. There was something reassuring about hearing her own voice spilling out into the darkness. She thought of Mrs. Digby. All her life, Mrs. Digby had been there to squash her fears and prop up her spirits. If she were here now, she would say, "Oh, don't tell me you're troubled by a little darkness, Ruby. Good gracious, you don't want to be bothered being scared of the dark when there are so many other bigger things to be frightened of. Like, for example, getting to my age and losing your marbles, or being run down by one of those city buses with their maniac drivers. These are fears. The dark's the least of your worries, kid." Just thinking about Mrs. Digby made Ruby breathe more easily. Mind over matter, that's what Mrs. Digby always said, and she was right. Ruby had made it Rule 12. Adjust your thinking and your chances improve. Actually, it was probably the best rule there was. Never panic. Rule 19. Panic will freeze your brain. Panic will get you nowhere. Panic can get you killed. She began to edge forward through the nothingness, and as she moved, her senses got sharper. She felt the tunnel getting steadily bigger and realised that the surfaces were smooth, not gritty as she might expect them to be. It didn't smell dank. In fact, it didn't really smell of anything. She could feel twists and turns, and before long was standing, not crawling. Yet still there was no light. All sense of time had melted away, and she could not accurately say how long she had been down there. She was hot and tired when she stumbled into what amounted to a brick wall. She felt around her, stretching up and reaching across in all directions, but there was no way forward, only back. It seemed the tunnel led nowhere. It had all been for nothing. Ruby sank to the ground, put her head in her hands, and wondered how she was ever going to summon the energy to get herself out of there. How long she sat there, she did not know. A sudden, deep, shuddering sound, as if the earth were on the move. A blinding light. Light as white as the dark was black. Ruby was jolted to her feet, eyes squinting, heart racing. And then the voice. "So you made it, Ruby Redfort." And that's the end of the chapter. A bit of a cliffhanger. Something I forgot to mention about these series of books is they're written by Lauren Child, who lots of you may have heard of because she wrote the Charlie and Lola series of books that you might have read when you were much smaller and you might have watched on CBeebies. And she also wrote the books about Clarice Bean, which are also quite good books. But I would say, again, probably slightly for younger children than you. So this is a great book for your age. The main character's 13, so she's just a couple of years older than you. They're quite exciting, they're quite funny. She's a very kind of clever, adventurous character. She's a great character. She's got a best friend as well called Clancy Drew, a boy, and they ride around a lot on their bikes, and he helps her a lot. I think eventually she lets him know about, I hope I'm not giving you too many spoilers. She tells him that she's become a secret agent. But I mean, all that happens quite early on in the book, so I don't think I'm really spoiling it for you. So yes, I'd highly recommend it. And what's even cooler is Ruby Redfort even has her own website. There's rubyredfort.com, and that's where I was playing the music from. And the cool thing is about this book as well is that it's set in the 70s, which is when I went to primary school. And when Lauren Child was interviewed about these books, she said part of the reason for that was so that the characters would not have mobile phones, they would not be able to go on the internet, and therefore Ruby would be perhaps more challenged to solve the mysteries she was presented with, because she couldn't just look the codes up on Google like we do now. She had to work them out herself. So anyway, that's my recommendation for World Book Day. If you do get a chance to read it, I hope you enjoy it. Bye!